Today's 60-bit superhero game is The Mask. It came out in 1995 for the Super Nintendo, and it was developed by Black Pearl, published by Virgin. It's based on the 1994 movie starring Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz, and there was also the Mask comic series, which I've never read. You play Stanley Ipkiss, who's this mild-mannered regular Joe who finds this crazy mask, puts it on, gives him all kinds of great abilities, and those are personified by all of the sort of green embellishment that are littered across these maps. And let's talk about these crazy maps and levels in this game. Basically, every level is a maze, and so you start off in your apartment, and you go into the bank, and you go into the sewers, and into a prison, but everything is laid out with, it's like a vertical maze. It's very vertical. So you're jumping and flinging yourself around. One of the things that you can do is press down on the trigger buttons on the Super Nintendo controller and press the regular jump button or press up at the same time, and you just flip and fly all over the place. It's a little overwhelming and a little tricky to control, but you've also got pretty cool, aggressive abilities like the opportunity to whip out a mallet and bash this annoying alarm clock that is following you all over the place, but you can use it on bad guys as well. You've got punching gloves that appear out of nowhere, and you're allowed to punch up people that are in your apartment building to begin with, and then eventually it makes a little more sense when you're battling your way out of a prison and people are trying to shiv you, and you've got boxing gloves and you've got your mallet, and you can also do special moves like spinning around super fast like the Tasmanian Devil. Or sometimes you'll be able to pull out a whole whack of guns and blast the screen for a second. And all of those abilities are super fun, but the vertical maze structure of the levels gets a little too opaque. You don't really know where you're supposed to go, so you're constantly lost. And of course, this is the mid-90s, so there's like no real map button or anything. You can't really see the level layout. And one of the things that they've done in this game, and this happens on every single level, there's always an element in the background that the mask can basically vacuum suck himself into, and then he'll magically appear in another part of the map. So you'll be bouncing around trying to, like a pinball, trying to figure out where to go, and you'll find all of these obstructions, like it might be a building or it might be a tree in the park level, and you can't progress any further, and you're bouncing and looking around trying to find the right ledge that you can hop to so you can get to the little floating yellow hat which represents your continue point, and you see it, but you can't get there, and then you realize, oh, there's a knot in the tree that you can zip into, and then you'll appear somewhere else in the map. The enemy encounters are pretty solid. The boss fights are insane. You fight like the landlady is your first boss, and then eventually you fight this big giant dude in the prison that's got this ball and chain kind of thing. And I gotta say that I was super impressed with the animations in this game. Very cartoony, very clever, very fluid as well. I loved the fact that, the mask would fall onto the ground and just splat into a little puddle, which was really cool. There's lots of great idle animations, like him dancing around, puts on a hat, and I think it's like marimba or something like that. He's got shakers in his hands, castanets and stuff. Very funny. The heart comes out, the eyes bulge out. All the stuff that you saw, portrayed in the movie, which of course was lifted from visuals that we saw in the comic series as well. Very elaborate, very over the top. It's a little insane, but it kind of fits the insanity of the property and definitely the, accentuated over embellishment of the visuals and Jim Carrey's performance. And, it was all so chaotic and over the top. And so there is this kind of perfect fit. This is the kind of game that you would imagine The Mask to be in, but also to play, because it's crazy, but it's also somewhat fulfilling, and I think it handles the license appropriately. I think that's kind of what you want to ask out of a game that's based on a movie or a property that you really love. It's certainly not that Konami Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles type caliber, or, the Batman work that Konami did, but you know what? This was a zany movie where the lead character would be in the middle of a fight and then start dancing, and guess what? That kind of happens in this game as well. So, you know what? I think it's pretty cool. And I think if you love the mask, I think this is a decent collectible to add to your Super Nintendo library. I'm going to give the mask a 7.5 out of 10.